light's bugging.
Yeah. Hey, Joel, maybe you should hire an electrician to fix it.
I just might have to. Yeah.
Joel's an electrician.
All right. Hey, everyone. We're back. You want to introduce?
Nah, go for it.
Introductions?
You got it.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, we have Jearred. Yeah. What's your last name, Jearred?
Foruria.
Foruria. Cool.
Yeah,
so you're here from, you've got an interesting background with BLM and some other things we kind of just chatted about for, so welcome.
Thanks.
Over.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the BLM guy we were talking about.
So why don't you give us just kind of a high-level bullet point kind of background from, you said you were in the military? What branch of the military were you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Idaho, joined the Coast Guard right out of high school, which is kind of cool. Served about 12 years, and then got out in 2013, became a federal law enforcement officer for the BLM in Oregon, on the Oregon coast. So I was the guy out patrolling our public lands, making sure guys were doing what they're supposed to do, right? It was a really cool job. Got to see a lot of, my office was the outdoors and public lands, so it doesn't suck. And then moved here in 2017 with the BLM, turned in my gun and badge, and took a supervisor job here in Elko. Worked here at the Elko district for 8 years. Climbed my way up the corporate ladder, as they say, and had a lot of really good experiences, and definitely, I think, have some knowledge to bring to the table to share with you guys as well as your audience.
Yeah, right. Definitely. That's so last video we made, we touched on the wild horse dilemma that's going on, and then how the Triple B and the antelope complex are kind of, they're seeking public input.
Right.
So you have firsthand knowledge in those units. Man, Joel.
That light, yeah. We might have a ghost on
we
this
gotta put on some techno music. There's this fog machine.
You guys go ahead and talk. I'm gonna try to tap on it for a minute.
Give the old tap trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
It'll give us 10 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive right into horses. All right, how much experience being the field supervisor here? How much hands-on were you with the horse? I'm going to call it a dilemma. I don't know what else to call it, because it is a dilemma.
Situation.
Dilemma.
So over the period of 8 years when I worked for Elko District, I had a lot of exposure, working with the horse and burro program, and especially from a supervisory perspective. I supervised the wild horses burro specialist. I was the signatory on all of our actions in the field office. Which is where the Triple B and Antelope Complex are at. So pretty familiar. I did a lot of, mostly reading, frankly. Our field staff go out, they do all the data collection and analysis. We put all of our stuff together, and I was the guy kind of reading that and finalizing it. But I also had the opportunity to go out to the field a lot and see impact, firsthand. Yeah. So that's something we talked about in the last video, is how we've noticed as hunters, when you're sitting around water, and even Annette, when we interviewed Annette, she talked about it. Horses chase off antelope and elk and deer, and then you'll get a lot of the horse lover crowd that says no, they don't chase them off. So from your experience in the field dealing with horses, what have you noticed? Are we wrong? We are not wrong. And there's some really cool conflicting literature out there. I've read reports on both sides of the spectrum. Some of the foundations out there, I won't name them, but I've seen literature from them, research papers that suggest that horses don't impact native wildlife at water sources. That was completely debunked. I don't remember which college, approximately a year and a half ago. There was a huge study that came out and said, hey, that is absolutely not true. Oh, by the way, to include sage grouse.
That's a huge one.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
Good. That's a hot topic.
Right. Yeah. Sage grouse and up here, that's a big deal, right? And so I know personally, I have seen with my own eyes, I've watched horses chase off elk, not in the rut, because I think a big bull he'll hold his ground, but cows and calves for sure. I've watched them chase off deer. I've watched them chase off antelope a lot. Yeah. You guys talked about the medicines last video.
Yeah.
I've seen it right there. There's probably a water hole we're all familiar of, and I've seen them right there chase off, 30 head of deer, like that. I've also personally been charged at a water hole to the point where, to protect my family, I drew a pistol, and I thought I was gonna have to shoot this stallion. because he was like 12 feet away, rearing up, ears pinned back, eyes big and bright and white. And I mean, I feared for our safety. And we were like 40 feet, 50 feet from the truck.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wasn't full of crap when I said
they're dangerous.
They're dangerous. They're very dangerous. A hot stallion, a stud horse. Yeah.
And I think there's some misnomers out there, because the folks that are like diehard horse activists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bless their hearts, because they're passionate about something, and I applaud that. I actually have to respect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they use a lot of the horses, like in Utah. Like there's a pretty prolific herd in Utah. Like you can drive right like 10 feet from the horses and get out, and people take photos of these horses.
It's just like Reno Carson area.
Exactly right.
Right on the edge of town.
Right, horses in your yard, right?
Those horses don't care.
That is not the horses we have here.
Yeah.
We know that, right?
Yeah.
I would hope that anybody would not be silly enough to try to go up to some of these horses and get close to them and take their photographs, especially a stud horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Some of those rural areas where there's smaller numbers of them, and they're kind of controlled or pushed out from suburbia, so to speak.
Right.
They're a little bit more adapted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they probably get managed a little bit different, but being in crowded areas. But like out here, they are wild.
They're wild.
Make no mistake about it. They are wild, wild horses.
Feral. They are.
They're
straight up
let's be
feral.
really clear,
Super
because
feral.
so
But that's
less
the
than 1% of the horses in Nevada have any bloodline to wild mustangs in terms of horses that came to the United States.
The original
from the
horses
Spanish
that got
Conquistadors.
released.
So
Right.
feral's a good term for it.
Feral's a great, less than 1%,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like you guys talked about last video, most of these horses, 90-some%, over 98% are, ranchers that turn them loose, people that can't afford feed, and then they just evolve over time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, similar to those pink pigs that you can
Yeah, right.
you leave out for, and I think within a season,
Yeah.
they become feral and they
Yep.
get to looking like a
It's
real wild hog.
It's like those farm pigs. If you leave, I think it's 3 generations. I'd have to double check this, but 3 generations they'll start growing tusks again.
Yeah.
And I'd have to double check that. But,
Yeah, I think it's actually like within that pig's life,
Yeah.
with it being out in the wild, I think there's dramatic changes to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, it's feral horses are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they really are fertile.
I've got a question, because every time it's the AML, right?
Yeah.
And what's that stand for?
Appropriate management level.
Appropriate management level.
We were trying to figure that out the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I caught that in your guys' lap.
Yeah. But so I noticed, I think it was 2021, they did a big roundup in the Triple B complex, and they removed almost 2,000 horses, and
I was a part of that one.
they estimated the population to be like 3,400.
Right.
Right. This year, I think it was December, they just rounded up another 2,200 horses, and they estimated the population to be 3,200. We've been in that area and hunted a lot. There is no way that it's only 3,200 horses.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's fudging some numbers.
Well,
Or they're just not accurately.
right.
accounting
So that's the
for it.
issue, right? So nobody's fudging the numbers, at least not from the BLM's perspective. That's not been my experience. Rather, what the truth is we have, most of our surveys are done via flights,
Yeah.
right? Well, the fact is, and I don't care if you're looking for deer, elk, or horses, if you fly a sector, right, and you're counting horses, they're running, because as soon as you kind of get kind of close, they're bonsai, and they're going right for the trees, right?
Right.
They're trying to look for cover.
And that area has a lot of trees.
And there's
and
a lot
cover.
of trees and cover. So you can only be so accurate. And, there's definitely a margin. I don't ever remember hearing or seeing any, like a margin of error, 20% or something like that, perhaps. But the bigger issue is the count is, you basically need like 10 planes to fly at once. Excuse me, right? To get the kind of the best numbers.
Right.
But then we also know that about every year they grow about a third. 17 to 20%.
A third.
17 to 20%.
When the succession rate on a horse, that's got to be 100% for a foal, or pushing close to it.
And the only
they don't have
predators,
predators.
Yeah, the only predators rarely, and I've seen it with my own eyes, horses that have been attacked and made it from lions. It does happen, not very often.
Yeah. Well, and those have got to be probably sub 2-year-olds.
Yeah, smaller. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and they're probably in areas that a lion can set itself up for success.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and they're probably in areas too that are
Canyons,
like
rocky stuff,
devastated
trees.
with, you know, a lack of deer now.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
So now
Well,
they
they
have
track
to start.
Yeah.
They
finding
track them
another
because
food
one of our
source.
traps, I shouldn't say ours, one of the BLM's traps back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, south of the Go Chutes off alternate 93 on the south side of the highway, they had a water trap or bait trap set up, and a lion came in behind the horses, and when they shut the gate, it was in there with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
It got out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
it happened. That's what happened.
That's incredible.
Wow.
That's actually pretty wild.
Yeah.
So it was because of how the water trap was. It was kind of a vulnerable moment that,
Right.
that lion thought, and then he chased
Right.
him in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I would suspect, because it, what I heard is it was a pretty small line, so I'm guessing it was probably curious more than
yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
rather than a predation type of thing. But
Right.
it does happen, but not enough. I mean, if Jearred could roll the dice and say, "Come on, mountain lions, just hunt horses," what a godsend that would be to Nevada.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got another question. So it seemed like through the early 2000s, they were fairly good about doing roundups and trying to keep that AML level where it's supposed to be. And it seems like from like 2008 through 2022, they just stopped. There weren't nearly as many roundups, and now the horse population, I think the estimate in Nevada right now is like close to 50,000.
Right.
And if all the AMLs combined, the total population I think is around 12,000. So like, am I correct in saying they didn't do a lot of roundups in that 2010 to 2022 era?
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why. One, funding.
Right.
Right. That's always the cash cow. Horses are cash cows.
Yeah.
They're the only thing that I know of that generates zero economic value to the country, and we spend $80 million a year on.
Yeah. That's wild.
And so
that's taxpayer
80
money.
million.
that's the last
That's
report I remember
taxpayer money.
seeing was right around there, 80 million for the whole program. And you're talking, salaries for employees. You're talking, analysis in the field, short-term holding facilities, long-term holding facilities, which is the biggest issue.
Right.
Because what they're doing is they go into a contract with Farmer Bob in Kansas that has, 10,000 acres of grassland, and they build a fence, make sure there's water, and they will go pay him, Farmer Bob, X amount per horse on their to keep them on their property. So they gather these horses, they go to short-term holding first, they get evaluated, they kind of pluck the best of the best. They try to do a good job by through the adoption program, which is an awesome program that frankly not enough people use.
Well,
about 3,000 head a year.
The money is a thing too. It's like
Right.
when you start breaking down how expensive it is to own a horse for
Right.
most people, like
Well, the BLM will
adoption-
pay you.
Will they?
They will pay you. I think it's $1,000 per horse for if you come and adopt a horse, it's something like $1,000, maybe $1,200 a year to adopt one. They'll write you a check to kind of help you get started.
Huh.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's that funding coming from?
From the appropriations.
From the appropriations?
It was an idea that happened a few years back as an incentive because we weren't adopting enough horses, and they know. I mean, we know as people, as taxpayers, those of us that are in the breadth of it here in Nevada. This is the epicenter for the feral horse issue.
Yes.
We know what's true, that it costs our state a lot of money. It's definitely taxing the landscape, and so they were trying to find a way to incentivize recruitment for adopting horses, which is awesome. I wish more people did, because there's some damn good horses out there.
Yeah. Well, now let's ask the hard question: slaughter facilities.
Yeah.
When did that get shut down? Why can't BLM? Because to me, it's like, because that got shut down, I know this is a hot button issue, but that got shut down. But like, that would be a way to have economic value in horses.
Yep.
And manage them appropriately.
Agreed.
You're probably not ever going to make enough money, but at least you're not going to spend as much.
You're not spending. That's right.
You're not spending 80 million. You're at least closing that gap.
And think of the
bit.
ecological benefit on the landscape.
Yes, that's huge.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah, kind of like we touched on before, like the health of the horses too. So that kind of leads me back to the funding. So if you think about the activists or the money that's behind keeping wild horses around, that is a whole lot different attitude, or a whole lot different of a whoever's putting that together than an advocacy for a deer herd or an elk herd,
Yep.
or so where is that really being heavily funded to where it's swinging some of these decisions in the favor of the horses? Is it like big money liberal groups, environmental groups?
Yeah.
Is it just all kinds of yeah.
So what happens is, and this is I'm gonna tell you a couple of quick stories about this to kind of paint the picture. I'm gonna start off by saying this. I remember meeting with Congressman Amity one time at the office, and I asked him, I was like, Congressman, why is this so damn hard? This isn't right. I mean, he was sitting on the Natural Resources Board, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
He and I applaud him because he was very intimate with all of us. And, you know, when I was working with the Bureau. So he knows what's going on. He's got a great pulse. I said, why is this so damn hard, Congressman? He's like, Jearred, he said, let me tell you why. They don't make movies about cows.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Well, that's
Right?
true. Most of the world eats horses. Canada eats
We're the
horses.
only country in the world that has a horse population that doesn't eat them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are, right?
The only one.
Yeah, because the UK, I mean, they all, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so that's another question. Say I wanted to adopt a horse, but I wanted to butcher it and eat it. No?
No. You'll be in trouble.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's really interesting because the Wild Horse and Burro Act, as written, does allow for the slaughter of horses.
Yeah.
But because of the movies, because of
The stigma.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much emotion, and I get it.
Yeah.
They are cool animals.
They're awesome.
I'm a horse guy. I grew up cowboying in Idaho.
I'm the
man.
same way.
Yeah, and there's something.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love. It's not a hatred for horses.
It's
don't
that
hate
threshold.
horses. We
It's
just
that
hate horses.
threshold, right? It's like
Right.
horses are awesome, but then there's too many on the landscape,
right.
and when you break over the top of that hill, in your mind, it's like, for guys like us, it's like,
Right.
now I've had enough. This is too many. We need to bring them back down.
So that stopped mid '90s. It stopped. Okay. And I love it even to this day. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been yelled at by horse advocates and my, either in person or on the phone, or death threats. I've had that.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
that's not being very passionate.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Or
It's
too
true.
passionate in the wrong
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
They're compassionate. And
But
tolerant.
still, right now, there's two things that the horse advocates will say is the horses are going to slaughter. False. Doesn't happen. And then the second thing is cattle grazing. Well, you just want to take the horses off so you can graze more cows. Well, that's also not true. And I can prove it. And I did.
Yeah.
And I proved it, and I'll tell you quickly how. So we had a gal from a foundation from back east. She came out here. She reached out to our office because she wanted to see truth. She was a writer for a very popular horse magazine, I'll say. So she came out. We did a tour up. We started out south of 80 on the go chutes, worked our way down the go chutes, down onto the medicines, and we kind of showed her like the better part, right, and then worked south, and it got worse towards Triple B and Antelope.
Yeah.
And it was a really fascinating day with her, to listen to her story, listen to what she's about. I applauded her. She had adopted 3 horses of her own.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
Because most of these people that are crazy like this, I say crazy very loosely, passionate, they don't actually adopt any.
They just want to save them and put them somewhere else.
They do, right?
Yeah.
So she actually owns them. So long story short, we showed her like the best of the best. This is like where the herd's doing in pretty good shape, right on the go chutes on the north end. Then down the medicines, and we went up to this water hole, this water trough, and there was a dead horse at the water trough. Young stud horse, definitely got killed by a stallion, right?
Yeah.
I am not exaggerating. She told us to slam on the brake. She jumped out of the truck in tears and went up to that dead horse and was petting his head.
Wow.
No exaggeration.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, that's that hard thing. A lot of people can't separate emotion from logic.
Yeah.
But
here was fascinating about it. She was here to write an article about what she observed. She wrote the article and it was never published. And I heard, I actually am 100% positive, she sent us a Christmas card. And she got fired from her position because the article that she wrote for that magazine was in conflict of the messaging, and so they let her go.
Really?
Yep.
And we've seen this in so many other arenas.
Yeah. Well,
if it doesn't fit,
definitely,
the narrative,
she's worthy of applauding because she wrote about the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
So you asked the question, right, Joel, about where does the funding come from? movies, people see, right, the pictures, all the, you know, the one-sided testimony of this, you know, the Western iconic horse, right? Just the same week that I wrote that, the argument to the BLM about the Triple B and antelope, I was on Facebook and I saw the Steve Gruber show. He's out of Michigan. He actually commented on that. They're gathering horses, and the big one in Wyoming, they're knocking out like 3,000 head.
I just saw an article about that. Yeah.
And so I was reading some of the comments, and I just felt so compelled to educate people that were so far gone.
You can't educate people on Facebook.
It was. I mean, I'm just like my wife. I'm laying in bed. She's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Just go to sleep." And because they're so misinformed, right? And it's really sad because these people, they assume, right, that the landscape's just flourishing and there's deer and elk frolicking everywhere.
Yeah.
And you know that everything lives in harmony, and there's, you know, that there's not a spring here that's only making a gallon of water per hour to water 120 head of horses, and they're killing each other and eating each other's manes of the water. They don't know any of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And anyway, so
yes,
that's where the money comes from.
Yeah, and I kind of figured. I mean, it's with just how much pull they have with wild horses. It has to be different money.
Yeah,
it's different money than, you know.
But that's a good segue,
Right.
because we were talking before. You know, I talked about. I think I said something about like the demise, right? About the challenge, right? So here's the issue. The problem is we have folks on the one side that are, you know, making all this money. They're loud. They're proud. The greasy wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I did or was a part of a horse gather, either in person, reading the NEPA documents for the analysis to either move forward with a horse gather or not, we would see 10,000 letters. You know, damn you BLM, you guys are the worst people on the planet. Blah 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 blah.
Wow.
Here's your. It was about unity. What do we do? How can we get involved? This is what it was about. I cannot remember a single letter of support.
Really?
Nope.
Yeah.
Really, so the other way. Okay.
And here's what really chaps my ass about it. I never saw a letter from RMEF, Mule Deer Foundation, Pronghorn Alliance, TRCP, nobody.
Really?
Silence.
That's good to call them out, because like that's something as hunters, especially in the state of Nevada. Well, and this is the thing too, is like a lot of hunters, they don't know when these roundups happen. Like I happen to know because I dive into the weeds and I go on the BLM website and I look at the roundups. But that's something we need to be more active in, is posting like, hey, these are the roundups coming up. Send an email thanking the BLM.
But
with email or snail mail?
But you
Which one's better?
Point.
Well, it'll be email, because they have a certain account that all the comments go to.
Okay.
And then they have to sift and literally read every single one of them.
So we need to send letters of support
to them and the congressman.
Okay, perfect.
But you make a good
now
point.
we know. That's what we need to do as hunters.
You make a good point about the support, though, and the different organizations. And if you think about it, you know, we're always trying to raise money for a new guzzler or a habitat project.
Yep.
Well, I mean, in these specific areas where the horses are thriving and way overpopulated, and like and their own demise, they're affecting the wildlife we're trying to protect too.
Facts.
So maybe we ought to think about that in our organizations. Is maybe some of that money doesn't have to go to a guzzler this year. Maybe we just want to save a spring, or maybe, you know what I mean.
So that's where I have to applaud NDOW.
Yeah.
Because NDOW has done an incredible job. All the guzzlers, I don't want to say all, most, at least in the high population horse areas, are fenced.
Yep. They're starting to do that.
They're starting to do with springs.
Yep.
I mean, we had identified, I don't know, 1,500 springs or something just on the east side of the county, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to take years to get to. Luckily, most of those are north of 80. So we got, hopefully they don't cross too much.
Yeah.
Right? But they, you know, I do know down in like the go shoots and stuff, most of them springs are completely fenced.
Yep.
But they still go through 3-inch pipe.
Yeah, they will, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they find out, even the A-frame ones.
No, I mean, if you watch dressage videos, they can jump too.
Yeah. You know what's weird though? They don't.
They don't,
yeah, that is strange, right?
They don't.
Yeah.
At least not in
'Cause-
large numbers.
I've hunted around spruce a lot, and that area where the antelope complex and the
Yeah.
medicines and triple B, all those. You don't see horse tracks inside the spring or inside the guzzler area, but there are enough springs around where it's like, why are they going to fight jumping the fence and as opposed to going
Yeah.
over here, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
In
probably
areas
where
with
that
more
is.
water,
Yeah.
Well, and especially spruce
But
because
if you
there's a
got-
lot of water for the horses.
Right.
That's
If you get out in, like,
actually
these-
owned land for the horses.
Yeah, but it's also owned by one of the largest horse advocates in the country.
Yes.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
You know, so they own. I'm not going to use their name, but they own all
Yeah,
the water
on
rights.
X, you can figure it out.
Figure it out. I'm not throwing anybody under the
Hmm.
bus.
Yeah.
Oh, so they have all the water rights. from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and they have troughs and they have,
Mhm.
which is
Oh,
like-
that big one all the way up in Boone Canyon.
Yeah.
In the north side of the
But
horseshoe.
I will say, at least they did it right. I'll give them credit on that. They did do it right in most of those springs because they are actual troughs
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Instead of a
pump
mud hole.
water up.
Right.
You know, instead of just a mud hole where
Right.
a horse will go in and stomp it into concrete, basically.
And some wildlife's probably using it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. Especially the springs that make adequate water. See, I mean, if we didn't have, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. If we had a plethora of water, can you imagine what would happen to the horse population?
Oh, yeah.
boom.
I mean-
yeah. It'd
I mean,
be
if
through
it,
the roof.
oh my gosh, it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, there'd be 150,000 horses here
Yeah.
Right.
overnight. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe the landscape then could handle it. Frankly, from an ecological perspective.
If that water was coming from rain,
Right.
You know,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you still have the problem with them destroying winter range. And,
Well, and
Things
the
like that.
big issue with the horses is they don't know. It's not in their DNA to migrate.
yeah.
Right.
They'll move a little bit, and they will expand, or you know, they'll kind of hopscotch, but they don't migrate. There's no horse in Nevada that migrates 50 miles like mule deer do.
No.
Doesn't happen. And so they basically, you know, make shop of their core area, and unlike grazers, they will pluck every plant out of the ground. So they eat it down, and anybody that has horses knows this. If you look at a pasture,
It's bare.
it's
yeah.
completely bare.
And nothing
You and
goes
I,
on.
we all know this. If you go to
Yep.
any guzzler or water source where there is horses can reach the water source, right? There is no vegetation within a 200, 300 yard circle.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah. Most of the time they'll camp out on that
Yeah.
water source.
Yeah,
Right.
Mavericks is a good
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, Mavs is a great example.
Yeah. That's the thing is though, I meant winter range though for like the deer and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Because they
Yeah, they're eating the
inhabit-
winter fat
they
and everything
inhabit
else, right?
Yeah.
that winter area.
They do.
Yeah, well, and that's why I say that's one of the reasons why the winter of 23 was so impactful on the deer population in Area 10 more so than a lot of other units, was because all these deer from the Rubies and the Humboldts, they end up going down to that winter range,
Right.
and that winter range is just devastated by
Fucked.
horses.
Yeah.
So they got down there, and it's like now you had a snow load, you had really cold temperatures, and you had no feed. So
Yeah.
those
Well,
deer
then you
just
also run
kinda
into a bigger
keeled over.
issue too, right? So, and I loved when you guys talked about it in 10 because I saw it too. When I moved here in 2017, I'm an explorer. You know, we jump in
Yeah.
the truck. We want to go drive and see and
Yeah.
you know learn the area. And I can remember going all the way down to 50, and there was a small herd of horses right along the highway on the south side of the Rubies.
Mhm.
And you're right. Today they are at Harrison Pass.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, I drove there and I was like, I had never seen a horse.
I mean, if you drive up Mitchell
Harrison.
Creek right now, it is loaded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, because you take that road all the way to the top and loop
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That whole loop road all the way up and over the top is completely loaded with horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see them on the marsh side too.
Oh yeah, the marsh.
Indian
Yeah.
Creek and stuff like that.
So that's
well,
where that's where the
even in the
collaboration
marshes now.
in the marshes,
there's some
yeah,
fence
there's some-
down. There's some fences down there
Yeah.
getting in.
Well, that's where it even becomes more challenging, right? Because we have horses, but all the horses aren't owned or managed by BLM.
yeah.
Right.
So the horses that are in the Rubies, they're on Forest Service.
Yeah, they're on
That's
Forest
Forest Service problem,
yeah,
right? Well, then the horses on the other side of the state around those aren't even BLM horses. That's Reno. That's Nevada. Those are Nevada horses.
yeah,
You know. So and then you mentioned the horses up by Owyhee.
Yeah.
Those are tribal horses.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So there's a whole different, you know, there's a whole bunch of things kind of going on. Good news is everybody plays well together and they help. You know, we've
Yeah.
got gathers and you know, with a Forest Service and BLM in you know one party, if you will.
Yeah.
So they work together, but there's still only so much. Even if we had all the money in the world, we are not going to fix the issue until we can start to harvest the animals in a way that's sustainable.
Yeah.
So
We can't pay for them to go live for 30 years on Farmer Bob's place in Kansas.
Right.
Yeah.
That's taxpayer money. It's not like the horse advocate groups are paying Farmer Bob. That's our tax dollars.
But we're forced to protect them because of the laws in place.
Yeah.
So that's another really interesting thing about Nevada that I actually learned not too long ago. Not just about Nevada, but the Wild Horse and Burro Act. The wild horses, feral horses, are only protected under the Wild Horse and Burro Act in the designated HMAs.
I've heard that before.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like outside of them. So enlighten us.
So Triple B and Antelope.
Yeah.
Right. Those horses are in. Let's say they're in the boundary, and there is a boundary. There's a polygon driven.
Yeah.
Or drawn.
You can look at it on the
That's
BLM
right.
website.
You can see it on the website. So inside that, they're protected. Outside of those areas, they're not.
And that would be a hell of a court case.
Still, right?
Mm-mm.
Really? No kidding.
Only applies the Wild Horse and Burro Act inside HMAs. So here's where I think Nevada could really change, and I'm probably going to get some hate mail for this. There is an NRS, a statute for the protection of wild horses in the state of Nevada. From an NRS or Nevada state perspective.
Right.
Which I understand the alignment. If that didn't exist, however...
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I think whether it's the BLM or the Forest Service or private landowners or the state.
The state would be able to manage them if they didn't have that NRS.
Now, I do believe that would hit the legal system rather quickly. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's the thing. It's like it's
amongst
all going to come to
enthusiasts.
it's all going to come to a head pretty soon. There's a lot more awareness about it now. The horses have been extremely overpopulated. I do know they have been starting to use that fertility drug. Do they castrate the stallions when they bring them in roundups?
Yeah, but I was super interested. Like the first time I went to one and thought, like, okay, we're doing some fertilization drugs here.
Yeah,
and we're gonna castrate some studs and stuff, and it's not what I expected. I mean, if Jearred had command of the, had the magic wand and can make it all happen, I mean, I'd have fertilized every one of them mares, or give them medicine.
I mean, especially with their population.
Yeah.
With their estimated population was 3,400 4 years ago, and it's still 3,400 today, right? So you could fertilize all of them. The horse in the wild here can live 20 years.
And the problem is it only lasts a couple of years.
Yeah. It's a, 5-year lifespan?
Yeah, but we've seen mares that have had it and 2 years later were pregnant.
Really?
Yeah, so it's not and that is one thing that like the activists will talk about. You gotta use the drugs, well, if they worked better, yeah. Right? I mean, if it was something where we could give a mare a shot and she would not get pregnant for a decade, that would be a huge victory.
Oh, yeah that'd be massive. And that would save a lot of tax money.
That would save so much tax money, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
It's just incredible how much attention this gets from, people who want to protect them, and then obviously us that want to protect our wildlife and our landscape. It's just the horse thing is. It's quite the conundrum, really.
You know where
you can't get anywhere with it. It's really tough.
It is tough,
Yeah.
and I struggle because
you're pounding on a brick wall.
I struggle because most of the people in my experience, most of the people that are squeaking the loudest and talk, pro horses on the landscape, they're not even remotely close to Nevada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
a hard
kind of a
one
joke.
too. Yeah.
It's kind of a Nevada joke. Like, somebody's sitting in a high rise in New York City, telling us how to manage our horses.
If you so advocate for it, come and adopt one.
Yeah.
Help the landscape, and then you can own a horse.
I'll tell you what. Let's take these 3,500 head of horses that are down on Antelope and Triple B. We'll truck them to the Appalachians and turn them loose.
Yeah.
Then let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't think those folks in the Appalachians would take too kindly to it.
I'm just saying, and there's people out there like, damn you, Jearred, like, you put that on me, Ricky Bobby. But there has to be a better way to garner some attention in a positive way, and I don't think anybody's advocating for like a mass decimation of the horse herds. I think they're beautiful animals, and I like to see them every now and then. We talked about this last time, right?
Yeah. I mean,
when you talk about the AML for Triple B, their population's 3,500 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Their AML, I think max carrying capacity is like 450 or maybe it's 600, I forget, but it's in that range.
Yeah, I think it was high was like 6 something, and I think low was like 3 something. So.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about almost 600% over appropriate management level.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, if you just got them all down to the management level, I think we'd be fine.
Yeah.
And we'd still have horses on the landscape.
Right.
They would be healthier. People would enjoy seeing them because it's almost a rarity to see one, you know, at that point. And it wouldn't even be that rarity because you're talking 12,000 horses for the state allocated. That's the same amount of elk that we have in the state.
That has to be coming up in some of these meetings, right? Really, it doesn't, huh?
Mm-mm.
So why wouldn't that capacity level be talked about? And I mean, we do it with all the other species. Like,
Yeah.
it's,
Well, and that's
it's just
probably the
because
thing,
there's
is
so
like-
many advocates and there's that much money behind it.
There's probably no recourse if they're over management level. Like, they can't be sued for it.
Yeah, there's not a penalty. But
Yeah.
it can be. Why not? You're in violation of the act.
Yeah.
Right now, the United States government
Here
is
we
in
go,
violation of the Wild
RMEF
Horse and
and-
Burro Act.
Yeah.
We're in violation of law, federal law, right? So why can't RMEF and Mule Deer Foundation and all these other guys come together? I mean, I feel like if you got the Big 10 heavy hitters and they all kind of pulled together and said, all right, we're done, right?
Yeah.
This is
he's
enough.
back down to the
File a
to the
lawsuit to
levels.
get it back down to the management level.
Yep. But the questions, and I believe the reason they won't or haven't done it yet and perhaps won't, is then the question still becomes, well, what do we do with all the excess?
Right. And that's the hard question, right? Because
That's probably the question.
it's not cheap to own a horse. And
No.
I mean, things have just gotten more and more expensive,
Right.
you know, and most people don't have horse property or know where to
Right.
even find horse
So
property.
how much of that population is off those HMA areas?
Now, I don't have an exact figure, but I would suspect with the expansion, just what we've talked about and we've seen, I'm going to suspect somewhere roughly in the 50% range.
Wow.
So that is an avenue, because if you do things outside those areas, outside that
And we
you
could
know,
find that out. I mean, we
Yeah.
could find that
yeah,
out.
then you're within rights to manage them.
Right.
Except for the NRS.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the NRS doesn't even, so the NRS.
So what's the
wouldn't-
NRS say?
Well,
I guess
that's-
we'd have to dive into that.
I've
Tune
had
in
it-
next time.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
I think
had it on my
that's-
phone, and I just got a new phone and I lost it, but I did have it.
But that's more for public recourse.
Yeah,
on
that's public
sorry.
recourse. Yeah,
Right. Not
Nevada's
for
not going to
federal.
stop BLM from they want them gone.
Yeah.
I mean, Endow, they take, please.
Oh, yeah.
So if you did what you could, if you know, and dance outside those lines and say, well, then if we're so restricted here and we have our hands tied, we're going to manage them how we need to outside of that.
Right.
It might balance out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
And they keep fighting for.
It wouldn't, though.
yeah.
It wouldn't.
No.
Well, and here's the thing too: is like there's starving people all over the world. There's starving children all over the world. Why can't we take the excess horse? If we're the only country that doesn't eat horses,
Mhm.
why can't we take the excess horses, do some humanitarian work? You know,
I have personally eaten horse,
Mm-hmm.
and it is fantastic.
Yeah.
I've heard that from everybody that's eaten it.
It is sweeter than beef.
One of the biggest mistakes I made was when I was in Estonia, when we were there for a NATO mission. I chose to eat moose over horse.
It's
I
fantastic.
should have eaten horse, but that was like my dilemma. I was like, which one? But
Well,
I've heard
I
that
asked
from
the
everybody.
congressman in that same meeting. I asked him, I said, right now it's costing Nevada, $120,000 to $125,000 a year to keep somebody incarcerated. Why don't we take the meat from these horses that are excess horses and feed our prisoners?
Yeah. Well, and you're talking these roundups. How many horses you get that are over the age of 15 and
Oh.
already pushing near death? And it's like, utilize the meat. They're an older horse. Leave the young ones in the
Right.
population. Sterilize them. But it's like,
But it's
There's so many
it's a
uses.
federal thing. Is why we can't eat horse meat in the United States, right?
Right.
yeah. So why
Yeah.
why can't I adopt one?
If we
and
can
be
change the
butchered?
Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, I think we can eat horse.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say.
Well,
it.
I mean, it's kind of odd that we wouldn't. But then again, if just going right back to the conversation and who's backing all this, and it's the emotional advocacy groups, and
yeah.
I mean it's hard to get past that.
It's heavy hitting, very wealthy
Yeah.
movie stars, musicians, congressmen and women. It's a variety of people that I'll say in the top 1% that are funding largely funding. Of course, smaller donations help, right? When you're trying to be an advocate for anything, but that's where the big money comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just too bad they're not seeing the true impact.
Yeah.
Because or they're just turning a blind eye to it. And
Yeah.
it sounds like this.
They don't want to.
Sounds like this lady that wrote the article.
Right.
That one article was probably tapping into that realistic part of herself. And
Yeah.
and got ixnayed.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Where's that First Amendment freedom? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the law about adopting and then butchering it for self-consumption?
I still think it would be in violation of the federal not eat horse meat,
Yeah, you can't even do it. You can't even eat your own horse if you wanted to.
Which is
can.
my experience.
Yeah, you can.
You can?
Yeah.
You just can't eat a wild horse?
Yeah, you just can't. Apparently, you can't.
We should get that.
We're gonna have to dive into that because
we should put some.
you could definitely raise your own horse and slaughter it and butcher it and eat it.
Huh. Yeah,
That's what we did. We were branding cows in Idaho, and my cousin had a horse that.
Yeah, I know a lot of
ranchers
ranchers that do it.
He butchered him, and we didn't even know. He about halfway through the barbecue, he starts laughing, and we were eating old Leroy.
But that's a real thing.
But we'll raise
people do
chickens
that.
and turkeys and
Yeah.
do the same thing. It's
Right.
yeah.
So,
Well, it's back to what I said. We don't make movies about cows.
that's it. Yeah.
That's interesting though. I mean, we should do a fact find now and say,
15 years ago, if you'd asked me these questions, I mean, I was a complete other script because I was like a younger kid, didn't really know the impact that horses had, so I was like, oh, I would never eat a horse, and it's like, oh no, there should be wild horses all over the state, right? But as I got older and got smarter, and then I moved to Nevada, and I saw the impact they had on the landscape,
Right.
and it's like, it's not normal when you drive 50 miles down a dirt road and you can count 500 horses, and that's the only wild game animal
Yeah.
that you see. Like, you don't see any antelope, you don't see any deer, you don't see any elk, but you'll see 500 horses.
So I'm sure there's been some interaction with like the Native American communities with wild horses. What's some of the polls check from them? Are they in favor or against?
I've never heard of anything against. I don't really recall, honestly, any position.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Native Americans used to eat their horses all the time.
But I mean, that's interesting because you would think they'd be able to weigh in on some of that too.
Well, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Especially when you get kind of closer. This is probably abstract, but closer to home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is all Native American land. So
yeah. Well, I mean, but we have several reservations around here. We got Wahi, which sounds like there's some tribal, probably let-goes out there in some of that country.
Yeah.
And then we have this one right here. I can't remember this one's name.
Then you got the Pyramid Lake.
Oh yeah, Lee.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure there's pockets of res land or whatever that the horses may be impacted some of theirs.
I'm sure.
Especially when you get down into southern Arizona.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Or not southern Arizona, southern Utah, northern Arizona.
Well, like another hot spot, like right after Nevada, where horses are super overpopulated, is right north of the reservation. We shot that giant elk.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, just south of I-40 there.
Carlos, yeah.
Well, there's a whole
Carlos.
down in Arizona. I mean, there's a whole community that's famous about the wild burros.
Yeah,
because they are infiltrated the community.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Beatty's like that.
Oh,
Beatty,
really?
Nevada's like
Beatty's
that.
awesome, man. You go eat some tacos and there'd be a burro right there.
Yeah.
Walking right by you while you're eating tacos at that place.
Yeah, I really think the call to action, if sportsmen, because I really think this is where it comes from.
Yeah.
The sportsmen, I think the call to action would be, you have to get engaged. No longer can we be silent. You got to go to the NDAL meetings. You got to go to the county commissioner meetings. You got to go to any public forum meeting and say, hey, when are you going to do something about this?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you don't know, if you live in this area and you're like, Jearred, I don't believe you. I think you're full of it. I'll tell you what. You send me a message on Instagram or Facebook, and I will personally go show you devastation and change your mind.
Oh man, you drive up. I think I forget the road. Spruce. When you drive up Spruce past the old mining camp on the north side of the mountain there,
you're right.
You drive up that. Every bush, you can see these old bitter brush that's just stems.
Yep, stems.
Been picked clean, and you can just see horse trails. I mean, they're terraces all the way up it. It's like this used to be a lush environment. There
Yeah.
ain't nothing here
There ain't nothing.
anymore.
That Duke Valley used to be so pretty, so nice. Now it's just destroyed.
Yeah, it's just dirt.
Long
And that's what
valley.
spruce is too. It just became dirt because
Yeah.
the horses got so overpopulated.
Yeah.
Well, even when you go walking through the trees over there, like everything in the trees is stomped out.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
poof dirt everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Mountains of the Godzilla poop.
Yeah.
They all crap on the
you
same
don't
pile.
hit those with your truck. Too
Oh
fast,
yeah. You better slow down.
Yeah, you'll turn over a side by side.
You'll need an
If
alignment.
you think you're gonna knock it off. Yeah. Well, that's good. It's good conversation around that.
Yeah, and apparently as hunters, we also need to email the BLM and tell them good job on the roundups.
Yeah.
You know, we support.
Please do it. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
like I was talking earlier, I mean, I just wrote up a great one pager not a week ago, in favor, asking, expressing my support to the BLM for this gather for triple B and antelope. Talking about the ecological benefit of removing these horses, and I posted it on Facebook on the Nevada Big Game Hunter, and there's another Nevada Hunter page, I think.
Yeah.
And I made it so easy. Here's the language. Tailor it how you want. Sign it. Here's the email. Like it's literally cut and paste. It'll take you 2.5 minutes.
Okay, so that's on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Put the
Jearred Foruria,
Mhm.
right? You have it on your page and Nevada Big Game Hunters, and yeah. So we'll put the link again for the public comment for the antelope and triple B complex in the description. So send them the email. Let them know you support them removing the excess horses from the landscape.
Yep.
Yeah, and if there's anybody out there that's watching and you know of other resources to be able to get involved, just plaster those up there in the comments, and we'll, for people to grab and click on, what have you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I feel like we're going to get a lot of hate insight from 70 subscribers. We might lose one of them.
we might lose one too.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it's shared in the right place, we're going to get a lot of hate mail. And I'll tell you that the most radical people I've dealt with, and I was a cop, right?
Yeah.
The most radical people I've ever dealt with in my life are, not all, but the activists and advocates for wild horses.
I think
Really?
we all know that too, because it's like they're so
I've literally had death threats.
Yeah, they're so emotionally charged, and all their decisions are based off of emotion instead of logic. Whereas we're like, yeah, it would be nice to have horses on the level, but not to this level. We want them back here at where they're supposed to be.
Right.
It's all
You
about,
know,
it's
and
all
like-
about what's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And it's what's interesting is an interesting parallel, and I think it's part of a grander plan. And the parallel is this: a lot of the same, people that are horse advocates and activists are also the same people who are huge proponents for grizzly bears and wolves and predator management.
Yeah.
See, that's another one that's driving me crazy, and that's another reason why I'm going to the commission meeting. I'm going to voice public input, because if all the ranchers in Nevada, so if you know a rancher, tell them this: all the ranchers in Nevada, if you're against elk, California is overloaded with wolves right now, and they're decimating cattle because they don't have any elk.
Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, or
Well, Colorado's
Montana.
a little bit different. They have a lot of elk, right? But
the cows are getting-
California ones, they're
Yeah.
going to move over here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're going to make it over here. And if there's not elk, at least to slow them down on the landscape, all they're going to do is decimate your cattle. So you can hate elk all you want, but it's going to benefit
What's
you
the
to
lesser
have
of two
a lot
evils?
more elk.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's like, I'm not a wolf advocate. I don't want wolves in Nevada. Like,
Yeah.
we have screwed up nature so much, you can't restore nature. Like, highways cutting through migration areas.
Right.
Developing cities in winter range. Like, you have to restore the prey populations to where they once were before you can ever restore predator populations. And, like, you have to manage
And then
those
they can't be
predators.
unchecked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and like you can't manage predators enough unless you're poisoning them.
Right.
Like, it costs so much to fly and try and knock down wolf populations. They do it in Idaho and they do it in Alaska, but it's like the flight
And they
time,
still can't even keep the population in number.
they still can't
No.
keep up with it.
Nope.
So it's like you can't add predators to the landscape if there's not prey to support them.
That's right. There is a positive benefit of the wolves in Idaho, and I'm an Idahoan by I'm a native, but We wouldn't have a moose population in Nevada if it wasn't for the wolves in Idaho.
Oh man,
Yeah.
there's so many biologists who push back. They just moved down here.
That's
'cause-"
not. Idaho Fish and Game released a very comprehensive study about it.
Yeah.
Basically, two or 3 years ago, talking about it, and they're like, no, they're fleeing predation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing too. It's like if there's wolves in their area and they go over here and there's no wolves, it's like okay, and that just keeps on going. That's how the elk ended up in Reno.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, there's a population of elk in Reno now because Northern California, up around Alturas and Susanville and all that,
Mhm.
had
Has the
elk.
wolves.
And when those wolves got in there, all those elk came down.
Yeah. They'll just start following river systems. And,
Yeah. They don't want to be around predators. They're
Yeah.
going to try and get
Right.
away from them. And wolves are the most deadly predator in North America as
By
far
far.
as like just their like in
One on one, they're
Montana.
not. One on one, not so much. But
Yeah.
as a pack,
Oh yeah.
I
there's
mean,
nothing that can beat them.
they're so smart. Like in Montana, like all these places, Alaska and whatnot, they'll use roads in the winter to get out of the deep snow to cover ground and
Right.
hunt
Yeah.
more efficiently.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll send wolves off the trail every now and then, you know, and they are so cunning and so
Incredibly
smart.
cunning. Yeah.
Huh.
And as a pack, they're lethal. I mean, in Montana, mountain lions are actually getting decimated where the wolves live now because the wolf pack will just follow mountain lions around
Mhm.
because mountain lions are more efficient killers on their own.
Yeah.
And as soon as they make a kill, the wolves will run the lion off. So lions are dying of starvation up there.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Yeah.
almost no deer and elk left in the bobs.
Yeah.
Between grizzly bear and wolf
Yeah.
predation and Bob
Yeah.
Marshalls and
Well,
this
that's
time,
West
this time of
Montana.
year is
That's-
crucial with the
yeah,
cat,
yeah.
or the fawning and everything
And,
else. I mean,
and that's the thing is like if you don't have the prey population to sustain predators and you don't really actively manage predators, you're just decimating wildlife because those predator numbers now, because of livestock, they can decimate the prey numbers, keep the prey numbers suppressed, and then they'll just live off of livestock while still keeping the prey numbers suppressed.
yeah. No, it's that's a hot topic as well.
Yeah, man, the
especially
hate
when you
mail's
talk
gonna
about-
come. I feel it.
Like I got one more thing on the wild horse and burro topic, and I think it's really important for people to hear this from somebody who used to work for the BLM.
Yeah.
You would be wildly misinformed if you think for a minute that the BLM is not trying to do everything they can.
Oh, I see. To help mitigate.
Yep.
Yeah.
They know. I'll give huge accolades to the BLM state director in Reno. He knows, and they are doing everything in their power to try to get the horses population down to appropriate management level. But we're talking millions of dollars, $1 million plus for each horse gather. Then who knows how much, per locale for long-term holding.
Yeah.
So the issue is funding in
Right.
what is appropriated through Congress,
It's always
and then largely, and I feel like this. We all, I think, feel this is an easy button. Well, let's just go shoot a bunch of horses. I mean, Australia is one of the most liberal countries in the world,
Yeah.
right? And they shoot the snot out of invasive camels and wild horses and burros like crazy.
Yeah.
Because they, not too dissimilar than Nevada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty dry in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
They understand.
They
They understand
understand
the
like
impact.
It's right, and they are absolutely dusting these animals over there because it's the only way that they have found to try to keep the populations in check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing.
It's
kind of how
these,
you keep populations.
these advocate
Get rid
groups,
of them.
it would make so much more sense since they have all this money. Why don't they just buy a big tract of land back east and they adopt all these
We'll
horses?
ship them.
Yeah.
Not only
it's
will you
just-
ship them, apparently BLM will pay them to keep them on their property. So
Yeah.
it's like, why don't these advocate groups just do that?
Right.
You
Well,
know, and they
because-
bring all the wild horses to their property.
Because they're not on the native, flora and fauna at that point. It degrades the Western iconic imagery of the horse. That's what it's about.
And they don't want to put the work in.
Yeah.
And they don't
Yeah,
want.
I mean,
Yeah, they
right.
just
I mean,
want to
they-
be keyboard warriors, right?
Yeah, I mean they don't. That's the thing about these groups is, they're quick to fight it with the and write the sign the check, but none of those. That's why I kind of admire that at least that one person adopted 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like they won't put in the work. They won't put. They just
Well,
won't.
and it's so fascinating to me because none of the horses here on North America are native. Not a
Correct.
single
They all
one.
died. All the native horses,
Yep.
they were half the size, and they died off 12,000 years ago.
Truth.
Yeah.
There is not a native horse in North America.
These were all brought by.
These are all brought by the Spaniards initially, right?
Initially, yeah,
Yeah.
and then just Europeans and
Yep.
Yeah.
Western expansion, and then
And
releasing
so, if
horses.
you, I feel like if there was a cause to like really be a shining example of conservation, it's what hunters have done. You know, you think of, you know, the wild turkey populations, buffalo populations, deer and elk populations nationwide, what conservation has done to recruit those populations. That's come of our willing dollars out of our pockets.
Oh yeah,
Because we love them, right?
yeah. The Pittman Robertson Act.
Yeah.
Hunters were advocating like, please tax me.
Yeah.
To
Right.
so
Yeah.
we can restore wildlife.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
conservation.
Waterfowl, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
I guess my
federal
question is,
government.
why aren't these advocacy groups focusing on something more prolific like native species?
Yeah.
That's the part that's always astonished me because, yeah, they're a Western icon. We conquered the West because of horses. Well, that is true.
That doesn't.
But we
mean,
also decimated everything in its path.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And that doesn't mean that today it's right to leave them in such big numbers where they're in horrible shape and
Yeah.
having to
They're in
struggle,
horrible shape.
having to struggle and
Yeah.
Well,
Not
yeah.
only-
When you
not
see
only
horses
are
that are
they-
eating each other's manes, killing each other at water sources, you know, stud colts stomping on, or
Yeah.
stud horses stomping on colts, you know, to reduce competition, skin and bones horses, hips popping out the sides, you can see all the ribs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not, I don't think anybody wants that.
Well, and that's not healthy habitat or wildlife, right? Because like now you have this explosion of horse populations, which have really decimated wildlife, native wildlife, right? But now they're overpopulated and they're all sickly, so eventually disease wipes them out. So now you have nothing on the landscape.
Right.
You have no
Happened
wild.
with horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
And that's another.
do
that's
they get
another
sick?
big
I mean,
victor.
I've never heard of that.
There will be a disease vector that's going to go through them eventually. Like that's what happens when you get overpopulated.
I wonder if it even will though for a horse. I never hear of horses.
I think it will, but
It happens with every
becomes,
population.
and you're right, it does. The question becomes, what's the threshold, though?
Yeah.
Right.
What is
It's
that?
we
Right.
wanna
How much
see.
is too much?
That's right.
And how long does it
So
take?
we can't wait for
Yeah.
that.
No,
Can't
I
wait
think
for that.
I think that we are at a. I mean, you guys know we are at the epicenter of the feral horse issue, which I find fascinating. Being in Nevada, the driest country in the state, that this of all. I mean, I would have thought it'd been Northern California or
Right.
you know, Colorado, you know, something like that. But it's not.
Right.
Mhm.
It's not. It's the driest country in the
Yeah.
state.
Yeah. The driest state in the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
The driest country in the state.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though is I'm almost positive this is correct. Is Nevada has the biggest underwater aquifer out in the United
Mm-hmm.
States.
Well, all of
But it's all
Nevada used
underwater.
to be a lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll just stay on top of this one. I mean, it's on 13th and 14th this week, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
we got. Hopefully, I'm trying to push the. I reached out. I'm trying to get the elk guy who's trying to push for the elk management plan to get opened up. I'm trying to get him on next week because the commission meeting, June 13th, 14th next weekend. That's going to be talking about how we get more elk in the state. So if you're in Elko,
Oh, that's the one.
yeah.
Yeah, 13th, 14th.
Yeah, if you're in Elko, that's where the commission meeting will be. Definitely go to it. If not, watch. Put in public comment.
Yep.
Like
You can do it right online.
Like Jared said, like this is now we need to start being more active because the people against what we want are very active.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you guys heard, I mean, there's not from the opposition. Haven't heard of a real valid argument for why they want to save horses other than the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, other than that,
It's because they're pretty.
I don't think they really have
Well, and they
a
think
good cause.
yeah, they think
There's not.
we want to
Yeah.
wipe them all out, and it's like first let's just
I don't
start by
wanna wipe
getting them
them
down
all
to
out,
their
yeah.
management.
That's
level.
it. That's
Yeah.
all I'm asking for.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
see a healthy
600
horse.
Yeah.
600% overpopulation is
Yeah.
not appropriate management level. You know.
Yeah, and then you might see their demeanor change
Yeah.
too.
Right.
You might see healthy horses.
Yeah.
You might not see so many mean horses.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because there's enough.
There'll be a
Competition-
lot
yeah,
more
the
fighting
competition's-
because the competition's not there.
Right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we'll be sitting at a water hole with my bow and not being able to kill an antelope. 'Cause
Right.
Damn horses come around like, man. man.
Right.
That happened to me. That's happened to me before several times. On deer hunts too. Deer hunts in the southern part of 10. And the southern part of 10 was a big one. And that sucked.
Yep.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day it was like, oh man, here come the horses. And it's just, you wouldn't see deer till, you'd be sitting in your blind and then they wouldn't be in there till after dark.
And I'll tell you, one of the hardest things to watch, and if you haven't seen it, if you go to some of these troughs or springs and so many of them make, a gallon per hour.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Something like very, very low. Gallon per hour, maybe 2 gallons per hour. And if you're off at a distance and there'll be 50, 60, 70, 100 head of horses standing around trampled, landscape, basically waiting for that water to fill up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they basically lick the pan dry all day long, hoping for, can you imagine being so thirsty,
Destitute.
right?
Yeah.
And like just all you want is some water.
Yeah.
And it's not there.
Right.
Some of the biggest bucks that I've ever seen, and I'll just call it out, in Unit 10, were in those PJs where there was just a gallon, like you said.
Yeah.
You might yield a gallon of water a day. And like you said, those tracks that you saw coming in and out of that, giant buck tracks. And seeing, that's the old glimpse of the old 35-incher walking through waltzing through the PJs,
Right. Yeah.
And you go, there's one in particular that I know of that I still visit because I just holding on to a dream, I guess. But it's stomped to death. It is just nothing but decimated by horses.
Yeah.
So those bucks aren't there anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And the brave ones that are, I don't know. I don't think I can outwit them.
The brave ones that are probably have an alternate water source.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there is a real impact, and if you are on the opposition of what we're talking about and you're watching this, like, we don't want to eradicate them. I think there's a balance to everything.
Yep.
Yeah. They still are an icon of the West.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
We don't need that many icons.
No.
We have
not an
more
icon
horses.
anymore.
We have more horses in Nevada than all other Western states combined.
Yeah, you're really devaluing what they should represent at this point.
We almost have more horses in the state, and this is where it's like, I would say there are more horses because I know the numbers for the counting has got to be wrong, because I've sat on one ridge and counted 1,300 horses in an area where they say there's 3,000 horses, and I'm like, I'm looking over one basin and there's 100 of these basins, right? So the population of horses is 50,000, even their estimate, right? The estimate on deer is like 70,000, 74,000.
Right.
But realistically, those numbers are probably a lot closer together. So now we're at the point where we almost have more horses than we have any wildlife population.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's not right.
So,
It's not right.
So to kind of finish my thought on that, if you are watching and you're in the opposition, quit being selfish. We want all the species that are here to thrive.
Right. Yeah.
And we're not doing them any favors by leaving them. Let us get it, let us get back down to the numbers, a good sustainable level with healthy populations of animals, whether it be deer, elk, antelope, horses, what have you. And then you can enjoy it when you want to enjoy it, and we can enjoy our wildlife, and everybody wins.
Yep.
So
Facts.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk just balance would work?
Yep.
Yeah, balance.
Balance
That's
it
the
out.
key word, right? Because horses and everything else suppressed.
Right.
If you just balance it out, everything wins.
Yeah, it's really a selfish thing to be like, we have to leave them all there.
And don't use the argument that it's about you just want more cows on the landscape, because that's not true. That the story I told you earlier about the gal that we did the tour with, we took her to areas that hadn't had cattle grazing for 3 decades.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and
most of the
yeah.
I don't know how much of the triple B or the antelope. Well, the antelope a little bit, right, for cattle grazing, but not a lot of the triple B or antelope.
And honestly, a
cattle grazing.
lot of these ranchers out here, they have to be careful. We don't have the lush green meadows of Montana. And,
right.
We have a minimal resource that they are they have a very good understanding of how to manage. They know when they need to move a lot. They know when they need to move.
They do a great job. Short intensity, high duration.
Yep.
Right?
They
short duration, high intensity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah, I was
actually,
about to say, I think you got that backwards.
when you come
That's
into
close.
and when you come into those areas, it thrives. Like
yeah.
they get all the bull crap on the ground cover, it's gone, and it lets native plants grow.
Yeah, turn them in the
Yeah.
spring, let those cows
Yeah.
munch the heck out of cheatgrass,
Yeah.
and then get them off. Guess what? That cheatgrass has to regenerate and gives the native veg a chance to shoot up.
Yep. Rabbit brush, all that stuff.
It
yeah.
reduces our risk of fire.
Yeah.
Because we all know how good cheatgrass burns.
Yeah,
I
but that's the thing. Like, you could kind of get a like
Targeted grazing.
Hunters.
if horses
Hunters out
were
there, that's a
mobile
tip.
like
Yeah.
cattle, because like
Right.
when cattle grazing comes, it's like they drop them off, they graze in this area, they push them to this area, they
Right.
graze in this area, and then in winter they bring them back to their own property, right?
Yeah.
So they're impacting like high volume for
Yeah.
a short amount of time. The problem with horses is they're in the same area,
All
high
365.
volume all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what the detriment is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So close those gates behind you too.
Yeah,
If you
please.
open a gate, close it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you're anywhere near a freeway. You
Yeah.
know? Like the death toll around Carson, like going Carson to Dayton.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
People
some of the
die all the
accidents
time.
I've seen on alternate 93 from like Loggies up and around.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've seen some
It's
horrific,
bad,
Yeah.
horrific accidents.
People
down there.
people die because, you know, a 1,500-pound horse, or even a small one, 1,000-pound horse comes
Right.
flying through the windshield. Like
Right.
Yeah.
the horse is going to win that battle against your car.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's yeah. So make sure you pick the right person to ride shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well,
you-
good, some good discussions. I mean,
Yeah.
there's other stuff we'll want to pick your brain on later
Yeah.
on some other episodes, but
yeah, we'll have to bring you back because there's a lot more stuff you can talk
I'd like
about.
to talk
yeah.
about some of the fun parts of your job too. That's
Okay.
interesting to me. Like,
Yeah.
some of the BLM experience you've had. you mentioned a few scary ones we can get into, but there was probably a lot of positive.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
And I think maybe just a interlude for the maybe a next one is, man, the people that I got to work with at the BLM. I mean, awesome,
shitheads,
awesome
right?
people.
Yeah.
You know what I love? I mean, just they're so passionate trying to do right,
Right.
truly trying to do right. And I mean, I met some of the most incredible people, not just BLM, but BLM, Forest Service, NDOW, you know, working with our state and local partners and other federal agencies. I mean, most of those people that are in that line of work are genuinely, they're not slobs like Doge made it seem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys are humping, working their buns off. Awesome folks that are trying to make our landscape the best it possibly can within the threshold of the laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and you're right. I mean, you bring up a
lot of
touchy
times
subject
it's-
right now.
a
With
lot
the
of
dose
times-
thing, but-
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times what you just need to do is like take the handcuffs off of these guys.
Oh,
just
yeah.
let them go to work. Like
Yep.
let them do their job.
That's an understatement. 'Cause
My old boss-
I mean, you are so restricted by
Yeah.
so
Laws,
many
regs,
things.
policies.
Just let
Yes.
them off
Yeah.
the leash. You know.
My old boss used to say, and I use this quote all the time. He used to say, "I feel like I'm a Ferrari stuck in second gear."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is true in lots of industries, including the one I work in.
Yeah.
It's just like you said. Just let us do what we know how to do.
Yeah. Just let them do
That's
their
it.
job.
Just take the cuffs
But it's a
off.
big ship. I mean, the government's a big ship, and it takes a lot to turn
Yeah,
it.
it
And
does.
the only way that it works is if you get involved. You know, even if your opinion is just an opinion and you didn't do a ton of research, frankly, just by being involved in saying something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really great. I'd like to see, backcountry hunters and anglers, they get together and do like the pint nights and stuff. I would love to see something like that here locally. They don't do it here, that I've seen anyway, but a collaborative where we can get, all of us together and barbecue and come up with a plan and a strategy, because there are ways that we can influence NDOW, certainly, and our, our congressman, the BLM. And if we do it from a collaborative perspective, guess what? That's exactly how they operate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. When they say call your congressman, they mean it, because like that they're not going to know unless you bring it to their attention.
Yeah.
And if you think it's the same idea as voting. I've talked to I didn't vote because my vote don't matter. Well, that's a lie.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
Right? If that's your idea, I mean, we're never
It
going to win.
certainly doesn't matter if you don't vote.
Yeah.
At least there's a chance if you do.
But it's the same idea, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you had a good rally of folks to come together and say, okay, guys, we want to take a hard stab at this and get in front of people and make a difference.
Yeah.
I think that people would be surprised.
Yeah.
I really do.
And I think it's time. And I like for myself, I was been transparent. Like that first episode or so we did, I was like, I'm not heavily involved in any of these things. I just go out and use, you know. And it's time we start. You know, that I start getting involved, and that's why Travis is bringing some new things to me and how to get more involved. And I like that. I like that idea with getting some core people together and having a fun work session, busting out some literature, and have a few beers, or if you don't drink or whatever, then do your thing. But and then barbecue.
We'll get some iced tea with a nipple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we have barbecue. We can do. Yeah. So don't be surprised if we put something like that together, because I do kind of like to entertain sometimes. Travis knows that. And
very entertaining.
Yeah. So yeah, we can do that.
Well, the old saying that many hands make light work is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I don't even think it'd take a huge group of people, honestly.
It really does.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I know at these commission meetings, I know one of the biologists, old timer there, he's been there a long time, but he said it literally takes like 10 people to come to the commission meetings and all say the same thing, and the commission will favor them.
Right.
So like, that's why I'm harping on, if you want more elk in the state, come to the commission meeting the 13th and 14th. That's next weekend.
Yeah.
You know, you come to that commission meeting.
And if I wasn't the aficionado of a wedding this weekend, I would be there. But
see,
I'm an ordained
you're
minister.
part of the problem now.
I know.
Are you really? Oh, that's cool.
I had to get ordained.
Nice.
Yeah, the whole elk thing. I'll just circle the spot on the map and just make sure that's represented to there where I don't want elk. Anyway.
Just make sure. Hey, you know what? If you're busy this weekend, like you are, all you gotta do is email the commission.
Email the
email the commission.
Put the template out.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. But
all right,
we should wrap this
let's
episode
wrap it up.
We'll have to do it again. We'll have to bring you back on and talk about the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Some more cool stuff.
So those of you, thanks for watching, and just subscribe. And if you're interested in any of this talk that we've been doing, and it'll help us out, and we'll just keep on doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Do you want to throw any plugs in for anything?
I would just say, man, ask questions on the channel.
Not what I was talking about. Like a YouTube channel,
no,
Facebook, you know, some financial advice, give me your money.
I would say ask questions, get involved, and try to stump the chump, right? If you think you know something more, please. I don't claim to know everything, but I certainly, if somebody out there has a different insight to something, I love a good challenge. So
that, and or if you
want to be involved,
a whole different perspective, perception on things. Yeah. With some fact to back it up.
Yeah. We don't need to scream back and forth or send death threats. Like open forum conversation.
There's no need for that. Yeah.
Just have a talk.
Come on, we're all adults. Let's not act like kindergartners.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And okay, well, cool. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks, I got to pee. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.